Yasmin pratishlokam abadavachyapi.
Yasmin pratishlokam abadavachyapi.
Namanyanantasya yashon kitani yat.
Namanyanantasya yashon kitani yat.
Namanyanantasya yashon kitani yat.
Namanyanantasya yashon kitani yat.
Shimvanti gayanti ginanti sadhava.
Shimvanti gayanti ginanti sadhava.
Shimvanti gayanti ginanti sadhava.
Shimvanti gayanti ginanti sadhava.
Tadrag visago janataga viplavo.
Tadrag visago janataga viplavo.
Yasmin pratishlokam abhavachyapi.
Yasmin pratishlokam abhavachyapi.
Namanyanantasya yashon kitani yat.
Namanyanantasya yashon kitani yat.
Shimvanti gayanti ginanti sadhava.
Shimvanti gayanti ginanti sadhava.
Tadrag visago janataga viplavo.
Tadrag visago janataga viplavo.
Yasmin pratishlokam abhavachyapi.
Yasmin pratishlokam abhavachyapi.
Namanyanantasya yashon kitani yat.
Namanyanantasya yashon kitani yat.
Shimvanti gayanti ginanti sadhava.
Shimvanti gayanti ginanti sadhava.
Translation. On the other hand, that literature which is full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, form, pastimes, etc., of the unlimited Supreme Lord is a different creation, full of transcendental words directed towards bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. Purport. It is a qualification of the great literature, of great thinkers, to pick up the best even from the worst. It is said that the intelligent man should pick up nectar from a stalk of poison, should accept gold even from a filthy place, should accept a good and qualified wife even from an obscure family, and it should accept a good lesson even from a man or from a teacher who comes from the untouchables. These are some of the ethical instructions for everyone in every place without exception. But a saint is far above the level of an ordinary man. He is always absorbed in glorifying the Supreme Lord, because by broadcasting the holy name and fame of the Supreme Lord, the polluted atmosphere of the world will change. And as a result of propagating the transcendental literatures like Srimad Bhagavatam, people will become sane in their transactions. While preparing this commentary on this particular stanza of Srimad Bhagavatam, we have a crisis before us. Our neighboring friend China has attacked the border of India with a militaristic spirit. We have practically no business in the political field, yet we see that previously there were both China and India, and they both lived peacefully for centuries without ill feeling. The reason is that they lived those days in an atmosphere of God consciousness, and every country over the surface of the world was God-fearing, pure-hearted, and simple, and there was no question of political diplomacy. There is no cause of quarrel between the two countries, China and India, over land which is not very suitable for habitation, and certainly there is no cause for fighting on this issue. But due to the age of quarrel Kali, which we have discussed, there is always a chance of quarrel on slight provocation. This is due not to the issue in question, but to the polluted atmosphere of this age. Systematically, there is propaganda by a section of people to stop glorification of the name and fame of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, there is a great need for disseminating the message of Srimad Bhagavatam all over the world. It is the duty of every responsible Indian to broadcast the transcendental message of Srimad Bhagavatam throughout the world, to do all the supermost good, as well as to bring the desired peace in the world. Because India has failed in her duty by neglecting this responsible work, there is so much quarrel and trouble all over the world. We are confident that if the transcendental message of Srimad Bhagavatam is received only by the leading men of the world, certainly there will be a change of heart, and naturally the people in general will follow them. The mass of people in general are tools in the hands of the modern politicians and leaders of this people. If there is a change of heart of the leaders only, certainly there will be a radical change in the atmosphere of the world. We know that our honest attempt to present this great literature conveying transcendental messages for reviving God consciousness of the people in general and re-spiritualizing the world atmosphere is fraught with many difficulties. Our presenting this matter in adequate language, especially a foreign language, will certainly fail, and there will be so many literary discrepancies despite our honest attempt to present it in the proper way. But we are sure that with all our faults in this connection, the seriousness of the subject matter will be taken into consideration, and the leaders of society will still accept this due to its being an honest attempt to glorify the Almighty God. When there is fire in a house, the inmates of the house go out to get help from the neighbors who may be foreigners, and yet without knowing the language of the victims of the victims of the fire express themselves, and the neighbors understand the need, even though not expressed in the same language. The same spirit of cooperation is needed to broadcast this transcendental message of the Srimad Bhagavatam throughout the polluted atmosphere of the world. After all, it is a technical science of spiritual values, and thus we are concerned with the techniques and not with the language. If the techniques of this great literature are understood by the people of the world, there will be success. When there are too many materialistic activities by the people in general all over the world, there is no wonder that a person or nation attacks another person or nation on slight provocation. That is the rule of this age of quarrel. The atmosphere is already polluted with corruption of all description, and everyone knows it well. There are so many unwanted literatures full of materialistic ideas for sense gratification. In many countries there are bodies appointed by the state to detect and censor obscene literature. This means that neither the government nor the responsible leaders of the public want such literature, yet it is in the marketplace because the people want it for sense gratification. The people want to read, that is a natural instinct, but because their minds are polluted, they want such literature. Under the circumstances, transcendental literature like Srimad Bhagavatam will not only diminish the activities of the corrupt mind of the people in general, but also it will supply food for their hankering after reading some interesting literature. For their hankering after reading some interesting literature. In the beginning they may not like it because one suffering from jaundice is reluctant to take sugar candy, but we should know that sugar candy is the only remedy for jaundice. Similarly, let there be systematic propaganda for popularizing reading of the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, which will act like sugar candy for the jaundice-like condition of sense gratification. When men have a taste for this literature, the other literatures, which are catering poison to society, will then automatically cease. We are sure, therefore, that everyone in human society will welcome Srimad Bhagavatam, even though it is now presented with so many faults, for it is recommended by Sri Narada, who has very kindly appeared in this chapter. Sadvad visago janataga viplavo yasmin pratishlokam abadavachyapi namani anantasya shonkitani yat chinvanti gayanti grinanti sadava. Actually, the previous verse is nice too. Nayad vachaschitrapadam haryajasho zagat pavitram pravinita kahachit tadbayasam tirtam ushanti manasa nayatra hamsa niramanchaushik kshaya. I'll read that too, because these two verses go together. Those words which do not describe the glories of the Lord, who alone can sanctify the atmosphere of the whole universe, are considered by saintly persons to be like unto a place of pilgrimage for crows. Since the all-perfect persons are inhabitants of the transcendental abode, they do not derive any pleasure there. Crows and swans are not birds of the same feather because of their different mental attitudes. The fruitive workers or passionate men are compared to the crows, whereas the all-perfect saintly persons are compared to the swans. The crows take pleasure in a place where garbage is thrown out, just as the passionate fruitive workers take pleasure in wine and woman and places for gross sense pleasure. The swans do not take pleasure in the places where crows are assembled for conferences and meetings. They are instead seen in the atmosphere of natural scenic beauty, where there are transparent waters, reservoirs of water, nicely decorated with stems of lotus flowers and variegated colors of natural beauty. That is the difference between the two classes of birds. Nature has influenced different species of life with different mentalities, and it is not possible to bring them up into the same rank and file. Similarly, there are different kinds of literature for different types of men of different mentality. Mostly, the marketplaces which attract men of the crow's categories are literatures containing refused remnants of sensuous topics. They are generally known as mundane talks in relation with the gross body and subtle mind. They are full of subject matter, described in decorative language, full of mundane similes and metaphorical arrangements. Yet with all that, they do not glorify the Lord. Such poetry and prose on any subject matter is considered decoration of dead bodies. Spiritually advanced men who are compared to the swans do not take pleasure in such dead literatures which are sources of pleasure for men who are spiritually dead. These literatures in the modes of passion and ignorance are distributed under different labels, but they can hardly help the spiritual urge of the human being, and thus the swan-like spiritually advanced men have nothing to do with them. Such spiritually advanced men are also called manasa, because they always keep up the standard of transcendental voluntary service to the Lord on the spiritual plane. This completely forbids fruitive activities for gross bodily sense satisfaction or subtle speculation of the mundane, of the material egoistic mind. Social literary men, scientists, mundane poets, theoretical philosophers and politicians, who are completely absorbed in the material advancement of sense pleasure, are all dolls of the material energy. They take pleasure in a place where rejected subject matters are thrown. According to Sridhar Swami, this is the pleasure of the prostitute hunters. But literatures which describe the glories of the Lord are enjoyed by the Paramahamsas who have grasped the essence of human activities. Tadbhag visargo janataga viplavo yasmin prati shlokam abhagavachapi namanyanantasya yashankitani yachingvanti gayanti pinanti sarava. On the other hand, that literature which is full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, form, pastimes, etc., of the unlimited Supreme Lord as a different creation, full of the transcendental words directed toward bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. So these two verses are very essentially important for those who are distributing Srila Prabhupada's transcendental literatures to understand, because these two verses show the two classes of man. You have the crow-like man and the swan-like man. Generally, there are more crows than swans. You will see crows all over Sweden, and you will hardly see any swans, if any. Maybe in a couple of parks here and there in the summertime. Swans do not come around in the wintertime, unless they are captured. But ordinarily, crows are everywhere. Crows, they don't mind even the cold weather. They don't mind eating garbage. They don't mind eating any nonsense things, because they have no proper standard, because they are crows. They have no standard of what tastes good. They have no standard of nice living circumstances. They'll accept any nasty thing, because that is the meaning of crow. It is the lowest of the bird species. Amongst all of the bird species, the crow is considered the lowest. Just as the tortoise is considered the lowest of the aquatics, and the monkey is considered the lowest of the beasts. Like this, we find there are different categories, different lowest species in each of these. So the lowest of the birds is the crow, because he will eat any nonsense. And that, if you have any experience with crows, you know any filthy thing you throw out, the crow will slurp up very nicely. But the swans, they will not take anything nasty. They will only take those things which are very nice. Swan is known for being able to separate milk from water, only drinking the milk and leaving the water. The swans. The swans only take nice things, otherwise they will not take. That reminds us of the chakora bird, who will fly up by the clouds and will only drink water coming from the clouds, otherwise they will not drink water. They only take the pure water directly coming from the clouds. So the devotee is like that. Maya may give so many allurements, and Maya may beat him in so many ways, but still he will not accept the lower taste. Just like the chakora bird, the cloud may give him horrible rumbling of thunder, or the cloud may give him a lightning bolt, but still, the bird will never accept any other water from the ground. So devotees of the Lord will only accept the nectar coming from the lotus feet of the Lord, will only accept the nectar of this Srimad Bhagavatam. They will never accept the nectar of mundane, what nectar? They will never accept the poison of mundane literatures and accept them as very nice or very learned or very important things. There's nothing important about a mundane literature. And mainly it is filled with stories of Gramya Katha. Gramya Katha means the Katha of the village. In other words, the Katha between man and woman. The Katha between the enjoyment of the opposite sexes. That is all that these mundane topics are filled with. These mundane topics are of no value whatsoever. Because they do not bring about any change in the heart. They simply bind the heart like chains to the pits of material existence. They do not in any way elevate the heart. They do not in any way change the heart. Therefore, those literatures are a complete waste of time. Whereas those literatures which bring about a change of heart, a change for the better, these literatures are very important. And amongst all literatures, a very small minority of them can bring about a proper change of heart. That is, those Vedic literatures which have been translated into English and then into other languages by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Otherwise, there is a vast ocean of garbage, and it is all stinking. And the people of this world are wallowing through this ocean of garbage, and they have accepted this as very nice. You know, if you've ever been in a garbage dump, I don't know if you've ever been in a garbage dump. We've been in garbage dumps. Anyway, garbage dumps, they're very variegated. They have very nice colors. Everywhere you'll find nice colors. And you'll find all kinds of things in the garbage dump. Some spread over here, some spread over there. If you are into garbage, you may find it to be very nice. This is very nice garbage here, that's very nice garbage. Because after all, garbage is simply made of all the things which you use normally, but you just don't want any more, like papers and nice food which you don't want and you throw out. And so it all started out nice, but it just became all mushed together, and thus it is known as garbage. So one may be thinking, oh, this is a nice paper wrapper here, and this is a nice piece of old food over here, and this is a nice... in other words, one may be thinking, because of his vision being limited, he may see the individual pieces of garbage and accept this piece of garbage is nice. That it's not all bad, he'll say. It's not all bad. You see here, this used to be a nice lamp, and now it's all just covered with these other things. You just have to brush it off. See, it's a nice lamp. Such a person may try to take pleasure in a great garbage dump. But anybody with half a brain will go there and see that the whole thing together is a complete stinking mess. And he will not want to have a single thing to do with it. He won't even be able to standing there in the garbage pit for a second. But a person who has no taste, whose senses are dull, he can't even smell the mess. He can't even see beyond his mundane vision. This is just an analogy meant to show that you can, only those who are addicted to sense gratification can look past this vast sea of garbage of this material world. Because of being addicted to sense gratification, they see something nice there, especially mundane sex life. And they see, that gives me pleasure, and that is good. Therefore I will accept everything about this material world which supports that mundane pleasure. They are seeing the whole material creation as being a means for them to enjoy sex life. Therefore they accept the material creation with great enthusiasm. Only for that reason. There's no other reason. Only for that reason do they go on in this material world. Otherwise there's nothing else of any practical value, which is the slightest bit of enjoying in this world, is simply the sex life and everything which surrounds the sex life. Gives pleasure because the sex life gives pleasure. Otherwise, there's no other enjoyments of this material world which mean anything. Therefore, it is just like crows, because crows are enjoying the sex life too. And because they are enjoying their sex life, they also are maintaining it by eating any garbage. And this keeps them very strong and healthy so they can go on having their sex life. And when they talk about crow-like things. In other words, what a nice piece of garbage that is, what a nice piece of garbage this is, what a nice sex life this is, what a nice sex life that is. Which is all that the materialists are thinking of. And all they're talking of. They're going on talking of these mundane things, going on thinking of these mundane things day and night, and they don't have any other possibility to understand what is right and what is wrong. Now, such mundaners, such materialists, are ruining the entire world. They're absolutely ruining the whole world. Because they are introducing into the human society values which are actually meant for the animal society. And they are proposing that these very nonsense values are the ultimate goal of life. That the whole human life is meant to ultimately accept this nonsense as something very nice. Whereas the devotees of the Lord see this whole nonsense human, so-called human society as nothing more than a society of dogs, hogs, camels, and asses. Therefore, they want to do something to bring about a revolution. Prabhupada says here in this verse, to bring about a revolution in the hearts of the misdirected civilization. The men of this misdirected civilization have hearts which are filled with all kinds of garbage. And they require that it is required that these hearts undergo a change. But it will not change in a very easy way. You cannot just go up and tell them, okay, you change. They won't listen to you. They may listen politely, but that will not cause the change. One has to bring about a revolution from within, where the energy of the spirit soul, the energy of the Supreme Lord Krishna acts to undermine the entire materialistic basis of their existence. And thus, they just overwhelm. They just are overwhelmed by Maya, so now we have to overwhelm them with Krishna. And to bring that revolution about, one requires the distribution of transcendental literature, specifically the Srimad Bhagavatam. Just like we have so many of these first canto books left. We should finish off that whole stuff. Why should anybody not have a Srimad Bhagavatam? Why should they not be able to read this very important book? Why should they not get this Srimad Bhagavatam? Because if they don't get it, they're simply going to stay on this platform of dogs, hogs, camels, and asses. And if they do get it, there's every possibility they will get off of that platform very soon. This is our way of making the revolution, transcendental revolution, by distributing Srila Prabhupada's books like anything. This will gradually bring about that revolution in the hearts of men. Otherwise, it is not possible. Just like Lenin may have made some revolution. In France, they made some revolution. In other places, they've made some revolution. Even in America, they made revolution. But this revolution was not a revolution of any higher value than eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. The revolution was, formerly we were eating, sleeping, mating, and defending in not a very nice way. And now we'll make a revolution so we can eat, sleep, mate, defend in a nice way. Or the communist revolution. Now the Tsar and his men, they're eating, sleeping, mating, and defending in a nice way, but we people aren't. So we make a revolution. But then Lenin and his men were eating, sleeping, mating, and defending in a nice way, and the people weren't. Actually, so many revolutions in this world, the actual plight of the man in general has not been better. Has not been better. Simply, his plight goes on being the same, and the leaders go on enjoying. This is the usual way of the material world. And everybody ultimately is captured by his sex desires and cannot get out of the entanglement of this material body. Cannot get out of the entanglement of the body or the mind because he's captured by the genital, which is forcing him to remain situated in whatever way he is in the material world, simply to squeeze out the last bit of pleasure from this material body. So this nonsense situation is causing destruction of all good qualities of the human being. The human being naturally has so many good qualities, because after all, he's a purified state of material body, as compared to the ant or the dogs or the hogs or the camels or whatever. The human being has a very purified state of existence naturally in the human form, because he can utilize his brain in a rational way to discuss and ask questions and get answers and make a change in his life, something which is impossible in all the other forms. All the living entities naturally have the same amount of intelligence, but according to the differences of body and the contamination of the body, they can express that intelligence differently only. So the human being, he can express his intelligence in a greater way. But if he expresses his intelligence simply to glorify animalistic propensities, then he is actually less intelligent than the animals. Because the animals, when they are doing their animalistic activities, they don't suffer karma for it. But the human being, when he does those things, he does suffer karma for it. Therefore, he's less intelligent. Because his actions not only don't satisfy him in this lifetime, but they cause him immense difficulties in the next lifetime. Whereas the animal's activities might satisfy him, because after all he's an animal, and animals are satisfied by animalistic things. But next lifetime, he just simply elevates himself in the natural cycle of birth and death. Whereas the human being doesn't get satisfaction, because having higher rational intelligence, he can't be fully satisfied by some useless thing, useless sense gratification. He's again and again searching for higher and higher pleasures. It's like if you observe a dog. He's satisfied to go smell this nasty thing or that nasty thing on the street. And he's satisfied. He's very happy. And he's very satisfied to just eat something and lay down and sleep. He's satisfied. He doesn't make a big trouble. He doesn't have to make a big industry to constantly produce greater and greater forms of sense gratification. Simple thing will satisfy him. But the man, the simplest things do not satisfy him. He wants very complex, more fantastic, better and better varieties of sense gratification. So that means he's in worse shape than the animal, because he's not even being satisfied. Whereas the animal at least can be satisfied by just going out in the street and sniffing something. So the human being is in a very bad condition. Very bad condition. And because of this, they are even preparing people now that, yes, if things are going so bad, economy's going so bad, everything's going so bad, may as well have a war. What's the difference anyway? And in this way, they're preparing people for this mass destruction without causing undue anxiety, because everybody's already prepared for some change, because they know what's going on now is not satisfying them. The amazing thing about demons is that they can produce great havoc and convince everybody that this is the best for them. To smash everything to pieces is very good, because then you have to waste money to build it up again. And such wastage of money is called growth in economic terms. To be satisfied with what you have, this is not possible in the modern economic system. The modern economic systems are completely dependent on wastage and destruction and growth. And when there's no growth, then recession, stagnation, and depression sets in. Thus, there's no question of ever having people satisfied with their occupational duty. That is why they took everybody off the farms and brought them to the city to work in factories to produce new products and give them money so they can buy those products. Whereas formerly, everybody was working on the farm and fully engaged. Agricultural society, very important society. But nowadays, this idea of agriculture is completely lost. Completely lost. They simply want to engage in a society which is sending everybody to the factory or producing useless things which no one needs, and convincing them to buy them, although they don't need them. And thus, an artificial standard of living is going on. And when that artificial standard can no longer be maintained, then a good war is healthy, and it creates further possibilities for growth. Such an insane, misdirected, totally unguided missile of a civilization requires to be completely overturned and replaced with the modern, proper Varnashram system, which is a religious, completely spiritual, and dedicated towards bringing about a change of the heart of all of the fallen men and bringing them back home, back to Godhead. And the way in which we can establish a proper society, free from all inebrieties and intoxications, anxieties, foolishnesses, and total ignorances of a modern society, is the distribution of these transcendental. Distribute these books, Prabhupada. Simply distribute these literatures, and it will change the hearts of all men. Definitely. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt. Many people are reading these books. Many people are changing their minds and becoming Krishna conscious gradually. They may not be able to change their activities just yet, but their hearts have changed. And they are simply waiting for an opportunity to change the activity or to change their external lifestyle. Some of them may not be able to do it until it's changed for them by force. But still, when that happens, they will also turn to spiritual activity according to the ISKCON movement which Srila Prabhupada has started. Because it is based on these books, and they know that what is in these books is right. Many people, you can't even imagine how many people, are gradually changing by this book distribution. Therefore, with great enthusiasm and dedication, we should go on distributing these transcendental literatures without cessation, with total dedication, with complete sincerity, and certainly we will get the blessings of the whole disciplic succession, the blessings of Srila Prabhupada, and Krishna will be very pleased upon us. So this most important service should be done continually and constantly. It is our life's mission. It is actually the only preaching which actually counts. All other things are simply a way to engage people. But the only preaching that actually counts is the distribution of these books. Therefore, our book distributors are the real Brahmanas, the real preachers, the real Brahmanas. Therefore, oh great Brahmanas, go out and save this human society. That is essential. Huh? You ready? Okay, so it's 7:12. I don't want to keep you any longer. You have to drive somewhere. You can take prasadam and have more kirtan in your car. All right,